Part 36. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 351. Chapter 351 Just an outsider. It has to be said that Huanya's public relations response is very fast. In just 2 working days, most of the consumers have been calmed down, and the negative impact on the company has been remedied. However, regarding the news, the explanation at the press conference still requires Su Yun to come forward in person. Luo Yuanhang was sitting in his office looking at big data, tapping his fingers lightly on the desktop. Although I am very unconvinced, I have to admit that Huanya's efficiency is indeed very high. In terms of response speed and handling methods when dealing with crises, it is indeed a bit better than Wulan before. A big company is a big company, and even the team is the most professional. If it were a crisis like this in his company before, he couldn't guarantee how long it would take to eliminate such a negative impact. Of course, now that I am out observing, I am also learning. After all, after getting this Yunqi in the future, he will still control such a large enterprise, and may even compete with Huanya. Only by knowing yourself and the enemy can you achieve the final victory. Su Yun. I haven't seen her show up in the past 2 days. Maybe she's scared? Or maybe you are so hit by public opinion that you don't dare to go out? Yes, now everyone looks at her the same way they look at a murderer. Of course, the outside world may not know the things about the Chu family, but they can clearly hear what Su Yun said. Even if Huanya explains now, the perfumes currently on the market are safe, and authoritative test reports can be issued. And even if anyone still has doubts, they can return it at any time, which has calmed most people's complaints, but people are all aware of their grudges, so from the bottom of their hearts, they still feel uneasy. This time, if it weren't for the protection of SI, it would be difficult for Su Yun to stand up. Thinking of this, he felt aggrieved again. After the recent period of struggling in the Yun family, he felt more and more that he just lacked a good background and a good opportunity. Si Yao's ability was not necessarily the same. What makes him better than him is that he was born into a good family. For example, in this incident, he didn't have to come forward at all. Everything was solved by the company's professional team. As the big boss, he only needed to approve the documents and listen to the reports. Just like the current Yun family, although it is him, Yun Chugzyo, the middle and low-level workers who work, or even the loser Yun Chukian, the control and ownership are still in the hands of the person whom he has rarely met. In the hands of Uncle Yun Bokian, this is fate. Bang, the door opened without warning, and he knew who it was without even raising his head. In the whole company, there is only one person who can open the door like this and dares to open the door like this. I'm working so hard outside, it's better for you to hide here and be lazy. Yun Chukian opened his mouth to accuse him as soon as he walked in, as if he had been wronged a lot. Raising his head unhurriedly, Luo Yuanhang looked at him. I'm working too. You at work? Don't think that I don't know what you are thinking. You are not satisfied with me taking the position of manager. You deliberately ignore everything and are passive in work. When the project is completed, you will take credit and receive rewards. Is that right? No, he snorted. Yun Chukian looked down upon this person. Just an outsider, but he always felt that Yun Chugzyo valued this outsider more than him. Furthermore, since this person named Luo is so close to Yun Chugzyo, he is his enemy. What he wants to do is to step into the Yun family and take control of the Yun family, and then naturally take his mother back to the Yun family, and then include her in the family tree. In the future, mother and son will be the masters of the Yun family. As for the half-sister Yun Chugzyo, if you are in a good mood, leave them, mother and daughter, to feed you. If you are in a bad mood, kick them all out. How come she and her mother have suffered so much outside, and he has not been able to see the light of day since childhood, but she and her mother can enjoy happiness in the mansion? He is obviously the direct grandson of the Yun family and should be in charge of the Yun family. Everything. Smiled faintly, Luo Yuanhang stood up and said, "You misunderstood." He walked around the table and walked towards him, then lit a cigarette and handed it to Yun Chuqian. Luo Yuanhang closed the door slowly and then said, "Now who doesn't know that you are responsible for this project, and everyone can see it, you work so hard back and forth, the perfumer was hired by you, the project plan was personally decided by you, from the production line to the targeted sales, this series is the result of your hard work and your contribution, no one else what can't be taken away is visible to everyone." His respectful attitude and the respectful tone of you every time made Yun Chuqian feel very comfortable and useful, and he was no longer as bossy and domineering as before. Taking the cigarette and taking a puff, Yun Chuqian narrowed his eyes and looked at him. "You know what's going on. I hope you really think so in your heart." "Of course that's what I think." Sitting next to him, Luo Yuanhang said with an attentive look, "Who in the whole company doesn't know that you are actually the future master of the Yun family? Mr. Yun's son is not living up to expectations. Now there is no trace, and Mr. Yun has not appeared in the company for a while. Seeing that this project is completed, if you are not Mr. Yun, you are at least the vice president. Can I go against you and have trouble with you?" Yun Chuqian was beaming, trying to restrain his joy, but he couldn't help but grin upward, and said cheerfully, "Loki, Loki. This is something that has not yet been decided, so don't talk nonsense. Beware of the company, the wall inside has ears." "Yes, yes, you have been thoughtful," Luo Yuanhang nodded repeatedly, looking submissive. At this moment, Yun Chuqian had completely let down his guard against him, and he didn't have any big objections to him. He even found him too pleasing to the eye, but having said that, what you just said is true. You said Mr. Yun's son is really missing. Although his father loved him very much, he didn't know much about the Yun family. He knew the basic demographic structure and personal connections, but he hadn't been to the uncle's house very often. When I went back to the Yun family to recognize my ancestors, I went there once with my father. In my impression, the uncle looked serious and cold. I couldn't call him bad or enthusiastic. He just nodded and asked again. He said a few simple words and said nothing more. He subconsciously didn't want to get close and wanted to stay away from his uncle's house. As for the eldest brother, he had never seen him before. "I'm not sure about this, there are just rumors saying so. But think about it, Mr. Yun's son has not been to the company a few times in so many years. Even if he comes back, if your project is completed, he will be the major contributor. Why should I compare myself to you? Even the people in the company won't agree." Luo Yuanhang's words made Yun Chuqian feel very reasonable. After a while, he seemed to have regarded him as one of his own. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 352. Chapter 352 Mr. Yun in the future. But thinking about his relationship with Yun Chugzio, he seemed uneasy and asked unsteadily, "That's not what I said. Even if the people in the company will not support my uncle's son, they will support my sister. My sister has been in this company for so long, and she has connections and foundation. Don't you just follow my sister and support her?" "Stop," Luo Yuanhang interrupted with a gesture of stopping. "I'm just a subordinate of Vice President Yun, I'm not supporting her or following her." "Aren't you?" Looking at him suspiciously, Yun Chuqian didn't quite believe it. "My sister was the one who assigned you the responsibility for this project. She is so kind and caring to you, and she recommended you to join the company. Are you not hers?" "Ha ha." Luo Yuanhang laughed out loud, as if he had heard some funny joke, but quickly glanced in the direction of the door, as if he was afraid of being heard outside, and then approached Yun Chuqian mysteriously. He said in a low voice, "I'm not afraid of you making fun of me. Even if I have this intention, Do you think Vice President Yoon can take a liking to me and recruit me to be your brother-in-law? Staring at him with wide eyes, Yoon Chuk-yeon raised his hand and punched him in the chest. What are you talking about? The fist was not very powerful, and it was obviously not because of anger. Rubbing his chest, Lo Yun-hang said, so, Vice President Yoon actually had her own ideas when she recruited me. I guess she wanted to cultivate a group of her own people in the company, and the company would really change its leadership in the future. Now, she still has the right to speak. What do you mean? Yoon Chuk-yeon blinked. In other words, Vice President Yoon actually knows from the bottom of her heart that she can't compete with you. The company will be yours in the future, so she wants to gain a firm foothold and is afraid that you will sit on the position of president in the future. Her position it's not stable. Yoon Chuk-yeon even forgot about the cigarette. The long ash burned so much that it almost burned his fingers. He was in a trance, suddenly came back to his senses, shook his hand quickly, and then put out the cigarette in the ashtray. Then said nervously, is it true? Does she really think so? I don't need to tell you this, can't you see it? Your father asked you to return to the Yoon family and arranged you to join the Yoon family to build a bridge and pave the way for you. It is very clear what you want to do. Everyone in the company no one knows. After a pause, he then showed a look of disdain. Besides, no matter how capable Vice President Yoon is, she is just a female. There is no reason to hand over such a huge industry to a woman. After that, when she marries someone, she won't be the property of an outsider. Nothing else matters. His words spoke to Yoon Chuk-yeon's heart. He nodded repeatedly, yes. Yes. I didn't expect you to be a fellow traveler. You see clearly. I misunderstood you before. You're welcome, it's an honor for me to be misunderstood by the future President Yoon. He arched his hands and replied respectfully. Yoon Chuk-yeon was elated, ha ha ha, you are really good at talking. Don't worry, when I have the day, I will definitely not forget you, and I will not miss out on your benefits. Then congratulate Mr. Yoon in advance. I hope Mr. Yoon can be promoted more in the future. He quickly pretended to shed tears of gratitude, which made Yoon Chuk-yeon believe him even more. Standed up and prepared to leave with satisfaction. After taking 2 steps, he seemed to think of something again and turned around. By the way, we still can't be careless about this project. You can keep an eye on the factory. I've been too busy recently. No problem, Lo Yun-hang agreed immediately, and then asked proactively, but when will the finished product and formula be available from the perfumer? Do you want me to contact you? No, Yoon Chuk-yeon quickly refused, I'll just contact you about this. You just need to keep an eye on the factory and don't worry about anything else. After a pause, he put away the smile on his face and turned serious, I will let you do what I need you to take care of. If you don't need to take care of it, you'd better not take care of it. I understand, Lo Yun-hang nodded repeatedly. At this point he was satisfied, opened the door and left the office. Lo Yun-hang watched the door open and then close again. The flattering smile on his face gradually disappeared, and his expression became unpredictable. This little waste still has a little bit of mind. After all, he still doesn't fully trust him and still has some reservations. It's just that his little tricks are not worth mentioning in front of him. The Yoon family will fall into his hands sooner or later. Mom, you are bored at home all day long. You should come out and relax. There will be an auction in 2 days. Then I will take you to shoot 2 things you like. Be happy. Yoon Chuk-yeon led her mother out. The mother and daughter said while browsing the luxury store. Yao Ying's face was much gloomier. In the past, she was decisive because everything was still under her control, but recently, she felt more and more that her husband's heart could no longer be kept. In the past, no matter what, he would still come home, but for more than half a month, he hardly came back. Apparently, his mind was taken away by the woman outside. Thinking about that little hanging out under his nose from time to time, but not being able to do anything to him, I felt even more depressed. So what if I buy it? So what if I don't buy it? In the end I won't be able to keep it, she sighed, her fingers lightly sliding over the clothes without any thought at all. Mom, don't be like this. Turning around and gently pulling her arm, Yoon Chug-seo said, this is not the mother I know. My mother has always been very confident and charming. Why can't you keep her? You used to, but the actress is still so beautiful even now. Yao Ying smiled helplessly. No matter how beautiful she is an old woman. Hello. A timid voice sounded from the side and asked cautiously, excuse me, are you Ms. Yao? Are you the movie queen Yao Ying? The girl who spoke was wearing the clothes of a shopping guide, but she was holding a small notebook and pen in her hand. She looked at her nervously and happily, looking forward to it. Yao Ying nodded, and she immediately jumped up with excitement. It's you, it's really you. Aw, I'm so happy. I'm sorry, I lost my temper. I'm your fan. I really liked you, but you passed away very early. It's such a pity. I didn't expect to be lucky enough to see you here. Can you sign your autograph for me? The girl held the book tightly with both hands, looking like a little girl. Okay, Yao Ying nodded, took it, and signed her name. I haven't signed for a long time, so I was a little rusty. I stopped writing and paused for a while before returning the book to the girl. The girl thanked her repeatedly and happily ran to show off to her companions. Yoon Chug-seo looked away with a smile and looked at her mother. Look, you are obviously very charming and you still have fans. Glancing at her sideways, Yao Ying shook her head. Do you think you can comfort me with this arrangement? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 353. Chapter 353. Wait and see the good show. Yoon Chug-seo was slightly startled and quickly denied, where is it? I'm obviously your fan, how can you say it was arranged by me? Besides. Pretend, keep pretending. Yao Ying stared at her, shook her head and said, don't you think I can't tell? That little girl has been staring at us since we walked in. She didn't run away until you gave her a wink. Come over. Also, even if she is really a fan of mine, here, if she has the audacity to ask for autographs, do things that have nothing to do with work, or even harass guests, they will not know the consequences. If it was not your instruction, I can only say that this little girl is a newcomer and doesn't know the rules. After a pause, she said, but it can be seen from her work badge that she is not a newcomer, so Shwe, I know your good intentions, but it's really unnecessary. When people get old, they get old, so let's accept it. I really lost to you. Sighing, Yoon Chug-seo shook her head. Nothing can be hidden from your eyes. But, you are so smart, why are you so indifferent on this matter? A nameless, it's just a woman, do you really think of her as a dish? Yao Ying shook her head. It's not that she is a dish, but in your father's heart, mother and son are obviously more important. You don't know that your father has always favored sons over daughters since he was a child. That woman outside gave birth to a son, that is, if his life really comes to such a day, I completely believe that he would rather break up with me than stand on our mother and daughter's side. If he doesn't stand with us, then we won't let him stand with us, Yoon Chug-seo said, turning her body around so that she was facing the mirror. Mom, take a good look, you are still so beautiful. So good looking. If you come back now, I believe you can still win the title of Best Actress. Why are you afraid of a woman who is nothing? Aren't you unhappy? Today, I will make you happy. Through the mirror, Yao Ying saw Yun Chugzio's eyes shining with calculation, and was startled. Shwe, what are you going to do? It's nothing, I just want you to watch a good show, she smiled, then took her mother's arm. There is nothing to see here, let's go somewhere else to see it. The two of them left the store, and after walking a few steps forward, Yao Ying paused. Following the large transparent glass window, you can see that in the luxury store in front, a woman is sitting in front of the cashier, looking arrogant. There are 3 shopping guides around her serving her at the same time, and their hands are full of hugs. Quite a few things. Although she is dissatisfied and does not want to pay attention to her, it is impossible for Yao Ying not to know the woman whose husband is outside. She recognized that woman at a glance. Chen Guo. That is Yun Zongchen's woman outside, that is, that Yun Chuqian's biological mother. That woman is obviously younger than him, and she is well kept. She has the most fashionable hairstyle recently, and she is sitting there with all her jewels. She looks like a rich lady. Who would have thought that she is a mistress? Mom, look at her. Yun Chugzio obviously knew her. She turned her head and said softly, you are so angry, but she is happily buying things. There are so many things, I'm afraid, millions. After a pause, she continued, where do you think she got so much money? She seems to have not been to work for many years. She has gone out to work. How can she be so rich? Did she use her father's card? Stop talking. She felt even more angry when she mentioned this, turned around and wanted to leave. Yun Chugzio pulled her and said, Mom, why are you leaving? Don't you want to watch the show? Shwe, what on earth are you going to do? Are you staying here to watch her show or mine? Are you going to come out and humiliate me after she uses your father's money to buy things? Yao's chest heaved with anger. Ying insisted that she didn't want to stay here, let alone cause embarrassment here. Mom, you are really mad. If she swipes daddy's card, you have to be willing to let her swipe it. Smiling, Yun Chugzio stretched out her hand. Mom, where is your mobile phone? What to do? Yao Ying looked at her with a suspicious look on her face. Although Yao Ying asked, she still took out her phone. Taking the phone, Yun Chugzio dialed a phone number casually. Bank? I'm Yun Zongchen's wife. Yes, it's me, Mrs. Yun. That's it, I accidentally lost a few credit cards, and I was afraid that they might be stolen by bad guys. I have taken advantage of it, so please temporarily freeze all the supplementary cards in my husband's name. Looking at her with wide eyes, Yao Ying was stunned. She was really angry, but she didn't think of this method. She had acted in so many dramas before, but they were all in vain. What about the methods to deal with the mistress? Hurry soon turned into joy, and he was no longer angry. He looked calmly towards the glass window. The woman inside was still happily selecting things, completely unaware of what was happening outside. Yun Chugzio was still talking on the phone. Yes, the ID number is, the mobile phone number is, okay, sorry to trouble you, thank you. Hang up the phone and return the phone to her mother. Mom, let's just wait and see the show. The two of them found a seat on the side and sat down, looking leisurely at the opposite side. There were just a few green plants blocking the side. They could see the opposite side, but from the opposite angle, it was blocked by the plants and could not be seen at all. To them, Chen Guo had obviously made her choice and was ready to pay. She raised her hand in a leisurely manner, holding a card between her 2 fingers. Even though she already knew the result, Yao Ying couldn't help but clenched her hands when she saw her holding the supplementary credit card in her husband's name, hating her teeth itching with hatred. This woman. The shopping guide took the card respectfully and turned around to check out. He came back soon and whispered something in a low voice. Chen Guo took the card back, gave another one to the shopping guide, and then. What happened next was completely expected. After a few times, The attitude of the shopping guide was obviously not the same as before. Chen Guo was obviously furious. She stood there and slapped the table and shouted. As for what she was shouting about, of course it was you can't hear it, but you can guess it. Just looking at her like that made me feel relieved and refreshed. Probably there was no other way out. Chen Guo walked around twice, holding her waist with one hand and picking up the phone to make a call. Beside, Yun Chugzio said softly, "Mom, Dad may call you later." Obviously, Chen Guo's call was to Yun Zhongcheng. The card was frozen and could not be used. The first person who thought of him would only be him. Yao Ying's eyes were fixed on that side, and a cold smile appeared on the corner of her lips. "Fight, I'll be waiting." Looking at her mother's face, Yun Chugzio raised her eyebrows. Her arrogant mother was back again. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 354. Chapter 354 Can't even believe us? As expected, not long after, Yao Ying's cell phone rang, and she knew who it was without even looking. She had an expressionless face and kept staring in the opposite direction. She watched the woman jumping around anxiously and was too embarrassed to get off the table. She just looked at her indifferently. After a while, she pressed the answer button. The moment she pressed the answer button, she seemed to have changed. She said in an extremely anxious tone, "Husband, my card is missing. What should I do? What should I do?" The other end of the phone. Even Yun Chugzio, who was fully aware of the cause and effect, couldn't help but secretly praise her mother when she saw her expression change instantly and enter the scene in a second. She was worthy of being a movie queen. Not to mention her expression, she could even hear her voice at this moment. Her anxiety and uneasiness were revealed, and no one who came to see it would think that this matter had anything to do with her. "Why is the card missing? Tell me slowly. Why is your card missing?" "I don't know, it's just my card and wallet that are missing." "It's impossible. I obviously had it with me, but how could it be missing?" Yao Ying sat there motionless, but her voice made people feel that she was getting anxious. Crazy, even a little bit aggrieved and choking. When she said this, Yun Zhongcheng held back what he was about to question. "Don't worry, think about it carefully. You are not usually a careless person. Why can't you find it? Did you leave it in the car? Where have you been? It won't be left in the car. I didn't ask the driver to take me out today. I don't know what happened. Maybe it fell when I went to the toilet. Or was it stolen while shopping?" she began. With a bit of a cry, "But it's okay. I'm afraid that someone will use it to steal money, so I've frozen all the supplementary credit cards in your name. Don't worry, even if it is stolen, there won't be much loss. That's it. It's a bit troublesome to report the loss and reissue it." Yun Zhongcheng had completely believed her words by now, and sighed and said, "Fortunately, the loss is not big. How could you be so careless? Just reissue it, but you can just report the loss of your lost card. Why did you take me? Have all the supplementary cards in your name been reported lost? How do I know how many cards I have lost in total? I can't remember the card number. Besides, isn't it because they were all frozen to protect our common property? Why, are you in a hurry to use money now?" she asked. The rhetorical question made Yun Zhongcheng stutter and unable to answer. "That's not very urgent, but it's better if it's not in a hurry. I'm in a bad mood right now. I don't want to say more. Just hang up." After saying that, she hung up the phone directly without waiting for him to speak. Seeing this paragraph, Yun Chugzio couldn't help but praise her mother's acting skills. It was really done in one go and struck first, so that Dad not only didn't question him, but also had nothing to say at all. Looking at the opposite side, Yun Zhongcheng probably called Chen Guo again and wanted to settle the bill. Today, the settlement cannot be completed and the things cannot be taken away. In fact, if it were Yao Ying who went to buy it, even if she didn't pay the money on the day, she could have the things delivered directly to her home and pick them up another day. But Chen Guo was different. After all, she had no name or status. These mistresses of rich bosses don't have too many, because who knows if you'll get tired of playing with it one day, or when the two of you will break up, so don't expect to get your things back if you don't get married now. Chen Guo lost her temper and left the store angrily. She didn't even understand why it suddenly stopped working until she left. Seeing her jumping around anxiously, Yun Chugxiu felt very discouraged, while Yao Ying naturally felt much better and smiled happily. "Shwe, let's go, mommy will take you shopping." "Mom, aren't you in the mood?" she asked knowingly. "Now we have it," Yao Ying smiled slightly, as if she had won a big victory. "The press conference will be at 7 p.m. Si Yao and Su Yun's plane arrived at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, almost non-stop. After arriving, they didn't even go back home. They immediately went to the company to prepare materials and communicate. Of course Zhao Xian and Wu Arian also know about this matter, but this time the matter is relatively big, so the headquarters has always been solving it at the Uniasia headquarters, and they are not needed. They can only worry secretly. When she saw Su Yun, she was slightly relieved. Arian rushed up and hugged her. "You're back. You said you've been out for only a short time. So many things have happened. What's going on? Are you worried? Kill me." "That recording is not what you said." The words stopped abruptly, and Zhao Xian patted her shoulder gently and motioned for them to go into the office to talk. After entering the office, closing the doors and windows, and drawing up the curtains, Zhao Xian asked, "What happened to that recording? Was it framed again?" From their point of view, they definitely believed in Su Yun, but they couldn't tell the difference between the voices. They were really similar. Could it be that they had been edited? "No, I said it," she admitted proactively. "Don't worry, I will solve this matter." "Aren't you worried?" "How could you not be worried? Do you know how influential this matter is? I heard that even the imperial capital has been alarmed. In the past 2 days, the Fragrance Industry Association will send people down to investigate." "Why do you say that?" "In that case, why are you poisoning the spices? Are you stupid?" Wu Arian was very excited. She couldn't figure out why Su Yun said those words, so she insisted that it wasn't Su Yun who said it. Now, even she admits it to herself, even if she doesn't want to admit it anymore. "But, why?" "There will be a press conference soon tonight, and I will explain this matter on the spot. You will know when the time comes." She smiled, with a look of disapproval. "Why do you have to say it at that time? Can't you say it now? Or are you saying that you can't even believe us?" Arian said anxiously. Zhao Xian waved her hand. "Yan, don't say that. Since Su Yun said that, she must have a reason. I believe you." Faced with the trust of her friends, Su Yun was very moved. "Thank you. But now, she has more important things to do. I'm very pressed for time. I have to go to the laboratory now. Arian, you go with me. Sister Xian, I may need you to help me prepare some materials." Zhao Xian nodded. "No problem." Although he doesn't know what she is going to do, Zhao Xian still has confidence in her after knowing her for so long. Arian followed her to the laboratory, feeling anxious. After all, this incident had caused quite a stir. The local news in the past 2 days had almost been occupied by it. Even when she went shopping, she could still see the commotion going on. "Consumer. Sister Yun, didn't Mr. Si help you handle this matter?" She thought about it and found that only the president of Huanya could handle this matter. The Public Relations Department of Asia Pacific is really not built. It solved the dispute in the mall in 2 days, but what can be said about the press conference? I'll take care of my own affairs myself. Soo-yoon winked at her playfully, but if you are willing to help me, I will be happy to. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 355. Chapter 355. The Emperor is not in a hurry, but the is. At 6:30 in the evening. In the banquet hall of Gyeongching's five-star hotel, the seats were almost full. In addition to media reporters, there are also some perfumers in the perfume industry, and even people who have just started in this industry. Anyone who can get an invitation letter with some connections will come. After all, this incident caused an uproar and shocked the entire fragrance world, so everyone wanted to see how she, Soo-yoon, could explain it. Whether he comes out to apologize to the public, or denies what he said, or what will happen. Yao's car did not go through the main entrance. It was arranged to arrive from the back, and then went through the VIP passage. Under the of a special person, it went all the way to the lounge. The secretary had arrived early and was taking care of everything. Hearing that the secretary had arrived, he rushed over immediately, holding a stack of speech notes in his arms. Although his expression was controlled, it could be seen that he was still somewhat anxious. Mr. She has something else to do. She will be there later, Yao said calmly. After getting off the plane, the two of them went to do their own things. Soo-yoon returned to Xinchen, and he returned to the head office. During his absence, there was a backlog of things waiting for him to deal with in the company. But, there is not much time, it will start soon. The reporters and media are almost here. I know very well that the relationship between the CEO and this Miss Soo is unusual, so naturally I don't dare to complain openly, but I am still a little dissatisfied. This matter was completely caused by her. If it had been anyone else, she would have been fired directly and held accountable. But now because Mr. Si is here, he is taking great care of her. The public relations department is already cleaning up her mess. This press conference is also for her. The company has never paved the way for an employee like this, but what about her? The time is almost up and no one has come yet. I haven't seen anyone, but the shelves are not small. The secretary has prejudice in the heart, and does not know what kind of woman can let the president look at each other. I heard that she is from the Chu family in Sioux City, so she is another ignorant and unreasonable rich lady. Judging from what she said in the recording, I'm afraid those previous works and awards were all produced by others. Isn't it time yet? Yao raised his wrist and looked at his watch. Yao looked very calm, and said calmly, Lin Rui, when did you become so impatient? Although the president didn't get angry, after all, he had been with him for many years, and the secretary could already hear his displeasure from his tone. He lowered his head and apologized, I'm sorry, Mr. Si, I was too impatient. After all, the impact of this incident on the company is not small. You may have seen that in addition to the media, there are also many perfumers outside, including some big names in the industry. And some of our company's senior perfumers also. Everyone is very concerned about this matter. This is not just Miss Soo's problem. It will not only affect the company, but may also affect other perfumers in the company. However, Miss Soo has not come yet and has no time to write the manuscript. Correct. If the time is not right, then it's not right. Yao sat up straight and raised his wrist to check the time again, but he had no intention of calling to urge anyone, wait a moment. The secretary was extremely impatient. After waiting for a few minutes, looking at his boss still looking like an old monk in meditation, he finally couldn't help but said, Mr. Secretary, how about I call Miss Soo? Ask her where she is. It shouldn't be difficult to check the phone numbers of employees in the company. Since the president is unwilling to press, she will be the villain. No need, Yao said calmly, you go outside to deal with it first, she will be here soon. The words have already been said to this extent. It is useless for her to be anxious. It is true that the emperor is not anxious and the is. The secretary bit her lip, turned around and went out. Yao then took out his phone and took a look, his eyes darkened. When the two separated, she said that she needed to prepare some evidence. It might take a while, and it doesn't necessarily matter if she arrives later, but she would definitely come, and she would definitely give an acceptable explanation to the media and the company. He has absolute trust, and he also knows that if she has no news yet, she must not be ready yet, and there is no point in urging her. Time passed minute by minute, and the hand pointed to 6:55. Seeing that there were still 5 minutes to go, his cell phone finally rang. "Hello," he answered the phone almost within a second. Yao, I'm stuck on the road now. We're on our way, but the time may be a little late. Can you let someone from the company deal with it first? I'm sorry," she was very sorry. "I calculated that the time was almost the same and I was already working hard to catch up, but I never expected that I would be stuck on the road during the evening rush hour. It was almost 7 o'clock, but I couldn't make it. Don't worry about this. Don't be in a hurry. Take your time. Where is the traffic jam? Do you want me to pick you up?" he asked in a deep voice. "No need," Su-yoon said quickly, "I'm stuck here. Even if you come over, you'll still be stuck. Then it will be blocked at both ends. Just wait for me over there. I'll be there soon. I'm with Arian. You do not need to worry." Hearing that there were others accompanying her, Yao was relieved and relaxed his clenched fingers. "Well, there are people from the company taking care of it here. You guys take your time. If you have anything, I can help you anytime I call." After making the phone call, Su-yoon finally felt a little more at ease. She had to make an explanation even if there was no time. Otherwise, there might be a big rush over there. "Wow." Arian looked at her with gleaming eyes, filled with little stars. "What are you doing? Stay a little away from her, for fear of being infected by the idiot. Mr. Si is really so gentle. You can't tell," thinking about the rumors from the outside world, thinking about the one-sided views she had towards Mr. Si in the past, and then hearing the voice on the phone just now, the contrast was really huge. Is that person just now really Si Yao? Is he the president of Huanya, a man who can make the entire Zhongcheng tremble with just one stamp of his feet? That voice was gentle and considerate, which really made people's hearts melt. "Don't worry yet. Don't be in a hurry. Take your time. Do you want me to pick you up? Ouch, I really have a belly full of dog food, so enviable." Looking at her speechlessly, Su-yoon said, "Is this the first day you've met him?" "It's indeed not the first day I've known him, to be precise. I don't know him that well, besides, his tenderness is only for you, it's not like someone else." Suddenly realized what he said and stopped immediately. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 356. Chapter 356. If you can't make it, I'll go. What are you talking about? Who don't you look like? He immediately teased her. I don't think I'm like some men. They are the most stupid and boring. Saying something nice can kill him, she said vaguely, obviously talking about him. Su-yoon would not let her go so easily. Really? Who is that man? Do I know that man? Is he handsome or brave? Is that man named Su? Woo Arian's face turned red and she glared at her fiercely. You are annoying, I will ignore you. Humph. Look, you can just tell me, but I can't tell you a few words. You are such a double standard, Su-yoon shook her head and said with emotion. It's a double standard. Anyway, You are not allowed to talk about me, and you are not allowed to mention him. He, which him, Soo-yoon pretended to be ignorant, which made Arian mad, but there was nothing she could do. Forget it, I won't argue with you anymore. Pouting, Arian looked at the box she had been holding in her hand. Just an hour ago, they had just made something. In fact, Soo-yoon is taking the lead in everything. The recipes, ideas, and guidance she gives are just the starting point. Time was tight, so she didn't study it in detail. She thought it was no different from the previous recipe, just making spices and perfume, but later she discovered that there were more steps than before and something was added. As for what it was, she wasn't sure. Anyway, it was Soo-yoon who brought it here. As an assistant, she just did what was asked. Now I know that it was brought to the press conference. In other words, is the thing they were busy with in the afternoon related to today's clarification? What could that be? Sister Yoon, can this prove your innocence? It's one thing to believe her, but it's another thing to prove yourself in public. As a friend, I'm still worried. I am innocent to begin with. She smiled and held the box in her hand a little tighter. 7 o'clock. The press conference started on time, but the person concerned did not show up. The representative sent by the Public Relations Department of Uniasia Company sat there and said a few words on the scene. He first thanked everyone for coming, and then talked about the development history of Uniasia and its achievements in recent years. When mentioning this year's performance and products, someone couldn't hold it back and stood up to interrupt her. Sorry to interrupt, we are here to see Soo-yoon today. What we need is Hwanya and Ms. Soo's explanation, regarding the matter of poisoning perfumes and spices. I don't want to hear these nonsense from you. Almost all the media in Zhongcheng are here today. You should always give everyone a convincing result instead of lying here. Is it empty? His words quickly resonated with everyone, and they all nodded and said, yes, yes. What we want is the result, the explanation, not just talking about something here. Hwanya is also a big company, how can it fool people like this? I heard that Miss Soo is engaged to Mr. Si from Hwanya, so is Mr. Si going to protect his fiancée to the end? The impact of this incident is too great, not only for Hwanya, but also for our perfumery industry to be affected by Soo-yoon's involvement. This will affect the reputation of all of us. Who will dare to buy perfumes and spices in the future? Do you know if there is any poison inside? She is spreading alarmism, spreading rumors, and deceiving the public. Those who are more radical have issued strong condemnations. The face of the Public Relations Department changed, and he immediately reassured everyone, please be patient. Our company is holding this press conference today just to give you a reasonable and fair explanation, and we will definitely give you a result today, yes. However, there is a small situation now, and Miss Soo has not arrived yet, so please give her some time, please. Hwanya still has a very high status in the beauty industry, not to mention that the Public Relations Department's statement was sincere. Everyone looked at each other and calmed down a little for the time being. But there are always a few troublemakers, and some people raised their voices and said, are you afraid to come? This sentence also hit the mark of many people's thoughts. In fact, some people also felt that Soo-yoon did not dare to come at all, rather than that she had not arrived yet. Yes. There is news that Miss Soo has arrived in Zhongcheng at 3 o'clock this afternoon. It has been such a long time, even if she has eaten, taken a shower, bought clothes, and put on makeup, she should have arrived. Is there any other minor situation? That's right, when exactly do we have to wait until? Should we be given a deadline? Do we want everyone to sit here with you and wait endlessly? Yes, you must give us a deadline. Wait another half an hour. If you don't come, then you don't dare to come, and you are deliberately trying to perfunctory us. People's hearts are always easy to be incited. A few words can make people excited. Standing in the shadows behind, Yao narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at a few particularly excited people in the large crowd who turned their heads slightly. Su Feng immediately came forward knowingly, and said in a low voice, "Those guys, go check it out. Also, check to see how the traffic police are clearing the blockage on the Third Huanan Bridge." Yes, Su Feng went to do it immediately. Secretary Lin Rui, who was following behind, showed a hint of anxiety even though she was under control. "Mr. Si, there is no guarantee of traffic jams. We may not be able to get there in half an hour." Yet he nodded slightly without saying a word. "Then if you can't get there. If you can't make it, I'll go." The deep voice was firm and decisive, blocking all the secretary's unspoken words. What kind of magic power does this Miss Su have that can make the CEO protect her like this? In the venue, the public relations department was still trying to calm the mood. "Everyone, please be quiet. Everyone is here today to seek an understanding and a result. Miss Su has indeed arrived in Zhongcheng. There are objective reasons why she cannot arrive for the time being. But I assure you that Miss Su is indeed in Zhongcheng. Rush here, please give Miss Su some time, and give us Huanya some time. To express our apology, Huanya has also prepared some thoughts for all the journalists and media friends who are here today. You can take a rest now. Eat some snacks and fruits and wait patiently. Miss Su, you will be here soon." After a brief gesture, people soon filed in with trays, and each tray was filled with very exquisite snacks and fruits. For the time being, things have stabilized. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 357. Chapter 357. Is there still such an operation? The entire road was blocked, and there was a small accident ahead. Although the traffic police kept guiding them, they could only move forward slowly. Seeing the caravan crawling slowly like a tortoise, Su Yun, who was originally relatively calm, couldn't help but become a little anxious. She glanced forward at the long caravan, then looked at the time, and couldn't help but say, "Master, I'll start from here. Get off the bus." Then he turned to Arian and said, "Don't be impatient. Take the car and go there slowly. I'll get out of the car and walk this way first and then think of a solution." "There are so many cars, how dangerous it is," Arian said worriedly as he grabbed her. "It doesn't matter. I will pay attention to safety on this road. Time is running out." She took a quick look. If she remembered correctly, there should be a small road nearby that could go around and go directly to the hotel. It might be faster. Then, "Be careful." Arian was very worried, but since she insisted, she couldn't say anything else, so she could only give a few words of advice. When the car stopped again, Su Yun quickly opened the door and got out of the car, trotting all the way to the roadside, holding the box tightly in her hand. She had to get there as soon as possible and could not delay any longer. The meeting place gradually started to become agitated from silence. They had almost eaten the fruits and snacks, and the time was passing by. Some people began to lose their composure again. "The time is almost up. Where are the people? Is this your excuse?" "Yes, we respect Huanya and believe in Huanya, but you can't treat us as fools. It's already what time and people haven't come yet. If you don't come again, we won't wait." "That's right, I don't dare to come at all. In fact, you..." The sharp sound of the microphone interrupted the noise of these people. Everyone's attention was attracted to the stage, and they saw Yao slowly walking out wearing a well-tailored black suit. After all, he is the president of Huanya and a well-known figure in Zhongcheng. In an instant, everyone stopped talking and looked at the stage quietly, waiting for his reply in a tacit understanding. Even if Su Yun doesn't show up today, if Yao comes and he is willing to say a few words, then the trip will not be in vain. However, looking at this, Su Yun really doesn't dare to show up. That's why Yao came out for her. Unexpectedly, The mall's tough-minded and cold-blooded CEO was so considerate to his fiancée that he was even willing to help her with such a thing. It's a pity that this woman is a brainless and courageless woman. What a pity. Everyone thinks about anything. Most of them feel pity for Sci-Yao and feel that Soo-yoon is not worthy of him. Sci-Yao stood there, himself a ray of light, able to attract everyone's attention without opening his mouth. He cleared his throat, then looked around, his eyes paused for a moment on a few people, and then he said, "Thank you to the media and journalist friends for coming. As for today's press conference, everyone knows what it is for come. Yes, a few days ago, an audio clip circulated on the internet caused a lot of criticism, and the target was directed at our company's perfumer, Ms. Soo-yoon. Regarding this recording, I think most of the people here have heard it, but everyone may decide for themselves whether the audio is authentic or not. Now I won't talk about the authenticity of this audio, but I will talk about the content of the recording itself." After a pause, he looked at the audience and asked, "Among the guests here today, I saw that there are many perfumers. Do you think it is feasible to add toxins to spices and perfumes? In other words, can it be done?" No one expected that when they came to ask questions, they were asked back. Someone wanted to say, "We are here to ask you, not for you to ask us," but since it was Sci-Yao, no one dared to say this and looked at each other. "Is there anyone who can help me clarify my doubts?" Sci-Yao continued. His attitude was sincere and he didn't look like he was digging a hole or deliberately making things difficult for others, but the perfumer was a little eager to give it a try. It goes without saying that Huanya's status in this industry is obvious. Even if such negative news comes out, the impact of negative public opinion can be eliminated quickly, which shows the strength of the company. As a perfumer, in addition to my own strength and hobbies, of course I also hope to have a good development platform. Only by standing on the shoulders of giants can I stand higher. So someone wants to win Sci-Yao's attention at this time. If he can get the favor of Mr. Si, it is not impossible to enter Huanya and even sit in the position of chief perfumer. Mr. Si, I have actually thought about the question you raised. To be honest, I have tried it myself. Someone stood up and replied, but to be honest, given the current technical conditions, I think it's unlikely. His words made the reporters present frown. Doesn't this mean he is excusing Soo-yoon? Which side is he on? I don't know how Miss Soo did it, but the spice itself is unstable and evaporates very quickly. Adding other ingredients for fusion and modulation requires a little experimentation, as well as the control and manipulation of the ingredients. These are all things that need to be done with caution. As for adding toxins, this is even more uncontrollable. He stopped here and pushed up his glasses with his hand, so I think this is basically impossible. Could it be a joke made by Miss Soo? An exaggeration? Sci-Yao stood there with no emotion on his face, and his emotions could not be seen, but the secretary on the side was a little excited. Yes. Just say that it was Soo-yoon's joke and that she was bragging. This would be enough to explain to the public and solve the current predicament. She couldn't help but look towards her boss, wanting to convey her inner thoughts with her eyes. But Sci-Yao didn't look at her at all. He just nodded to the perfumer and said, "Thank you for sharing. Does anyone have any other opinions?" Once there is a beginning, someone will soon take over and continue talking. What was supposed to be a press conference and a clarification and explanation meeting suddenly turned into an experience sharing and exchange meeting. The media were all shocked. Is there such an operation? Just when another one finished speaking and the next one wanted to speak, someone finally couldn't help but interrupt. "Mr. Si, please forgive me. I think you are deliberately stalling for time. What we want to hear now is not the opinions of other perfumers, but Miss Soo-yoon herself. As the person involved, shouldn't she stand up? Give the vast consumer groups, a statement, an explanation. Or is it impossible for her to show up today? If that's the case, please let us know in advance so we don't have to wait here. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 358. Chapter 358 Crazy. The world is crazy. Actually, Miss Su. Seeing that his boss just stared at the person who spoke and did not speak, the secretary beside him became anxious and couldn't help but take the initiative to speak. Before I finished speaking, I heard a crisp voice, "Sorry, I'm late." She was panting heavily and looked a little embarrassed. Her hair was wet with sweat and stuck to her face, and she was wearing more casual clothes. The media who originally thought she would dress up to attend the event were shocked. When they realized what she was doing, they picked up their cameras and took pictures. In any case, the rightful owner finally appeared, and today's trip was not in vain. As for why Soo-yoon was so embarrassed, maybe she didn't want to come but was forced to show up anyway. Some reporters are already imagining a drama. Yao turned around and looked at his little wife. She was holding a box in her hand. She hadn't completely calmed down yet, and her breathing was very rapid. "Don't worry," he said warmly, took out a handkerchief from his pocket, and gently wiped the sweat from her forehead and cheeks. The secretaries and Huanya staff on the stage were shocked. The media and reporters in the audience had their eyes widened, and they were so quick to react that they started pressing the shutter button of their cameras frantically. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The iron tree is in bloom. There have never been any scandals. It has even been rumored that he is a straight man or a CEO with a special gender orientation, showing affection in public. Although everyone felt that Mr. C's appearance and performance in this matter was too biased towards Soo-yoon, guessing and hearing about it are two different things from seeing it with one's own eyes. "I'm fine." Soo-yoon shook her head and said, "I can do it." I know he still looked unhurried. He only had her in his eyes, and it was as if the media and other things didn't exist. Took a bottle of mineral water from the table, opened it and handed it to her. "Drink some water first, then sit down and say slowly, 'I'll accompany you.'" "Yeah," Soo-yoon nodded obediently. She was indeed thirsty. After drinking a few large sips of water, she sat down on the empty seat that had been prepared and finally felt a little relieved. She ran all the way here. Although the distance was not too far, she was still tired from running. Fortunately, it was not too late. Sitting here now, there are so many pairs of eyes staring at her in the audience. She knows that a considerable number of people are waiting for her to be embarrassed, but I'm sorry, I'm afraid I will disappoint them. First of all, I want to say sorry to everyone. For some reasons, I came late and made you wait for so long. I'm really sorry." She sincerely apologized. Her attitude was still very good, and part of her complaints were no longer so strong. Secondly, it's about the recording circulating on the internet. She cleared her throat and looked down with clear eyes. "I must admit to everyone that that recording is my voice, and that the words are indeed that's what I said. Although the recording was edited, it was indeed what I said, and I admit that." As soon as these words came out, there was an uproar. The secretary beside her felt her heart stop and couldn't help but glared in Soo-yoon's direction. Is this woman crazy? They have made so much preparation and efforts in the past, just to restore her image as much as possible, minimize the company's losses, and eliminate negative effects, but she was so good that all their efforts were in vain with just a few words. Even not as good as the previous perfumer. Why not just say that she was bragging and joking, and admit it seriously? Does she think she is heroic and majestic in doing so? What a no-brainer. Looking at his boss again, he showed no intention of stopping her. His eyes were always on that woman, as if she was his whole world. Crazy. The world is crazy. The president is also crazy. Looking at the sky speechlessly, I don't know how today's press conference will end. Anyway, it has already reached this point, so I can only continue to grit my teeth and listen. Ms. What do you mean is that the recording was edited? In other words, it doesn't mean what we heard. Reporters are smart people and quickly summarized the key points. The recording does have traces of editing, but Miss Su's few sentences are coherent and have not been edited. Someone raised objections. Faced with many doubts, Soo-yoon was not anxious. She smiled slightly and nodded. This journalist friend must have listened and analyzed it very carefully. To be honest, I have listened too. What I said is indeed true. It hasn't been edited, that's right. It's just that everyone may have overlooked one thing: our country's culture is extensive and profound, not to mention the same pronunciation but different words. Even some words may express different meanings in different contexts. As she spoke, she suddenly stood up. Not knowing what she was going to do, the reporters all craned their heads, but she took a marker pen in her hand, turned around and walked towards a board behind her, walked over directly, and wrote 2 strokes. Others in Huanya didn't know what she was going to do. They were curious to see what she wrote, but they saw that she had written 2 big words: poison. Her face changed in shock. What is she going to do? Secretary Lin Rui felt that she was going to faint. Today, a large part of Huanya's empire would be destroyed in the hands of the president, a foolish king who loves beauty but not the kingdom. Looking at Yao with sad eyes, he didn't react at all. He looked at the board calmly. What do you think of when you see these 2 words? What do you think they mean? Soo-yoon asked, turning around and pointing at the words. Poison. Someone read it out. Miss Soo, what do you mean? You mean, do you admit that you really poisoned it? So, it is possible to poison spices and perfumes, right? Smiling faintly, Soo-yoon did not answer, but added 2 more strokes with her pen. This time, she did not write, but added a punctuation mark. The word poison on the board became poison. What now? She asked again. There was silence in the audience, and then there was whispering among each other. Some people began to understand a little bit, while others didn't quite understand it yet. Frowning, Secretary Lin Rui also thought silently in her mind, poison, poison, is there any difference? No difference. Double quotation marks can express emphasis and quotation, or special titles, as well as sarcasm and negation. So this poison actually represents not the poison that everyone generally thinks of. Soo-yoon's voice was clear and clear. Explained, but this punctuation mark cannot be seen in our daily speech. By analyzing specific issues, I mean that the words are what I said, but they do not mean what everyone understands. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 359. Chapter 359, Medicine is 3 parts poison. For a time, the whole place was poisoning. Consider again and again whether the meaning will be really different depending on the different stress and tone. Even the people on Lianya's side were wondering silently. Soo-yoon was the only one who stood there calmly. Even though she was not dressed up, even though she was not dressed up carefully, people still felt that she was so beautiful that people couldn't take their eyes away. But even if that's the case, what do you mean by poisoning? If it's not poison, how can it be a tonic? Faced with such doubts, Soo-yoon obviously expected it. She smiled and said, it's not a tonic, but it's almost the same. After all, tonics are good for the body, and what I added also has this effect. Don't be so pretentious. So you still admit that you added something to the spices, and you added other additives during the process of making the fragrance, right? What exactly did you add? Challenging is always the fastest. When one person opens his mouth, countless others will join him. She put away the smile on her face and looked around seriously. Her seriousness and solemnity made everyone else fall silent, feeling that she was about to get angry. Everyone, before I explain to you what was added to it, I want to talk about why I added other things. She lowered her head and walked slowly, looking a little solemn. The pace is slow, as if every step is heavy and sad. For a while, no one spoke. They all took the initiative to stay quiet and wait for her next words. After walking back and forth, Soo-yoon finally stopped and looked up at the audience again. You may have heard that my grandpa passed away just last month. My grandpa is a very strict but very kind old man. He has always been in good health, but in his later years, he unexpectedly suffered from insomnia. He couldn't sleep well and couldn't sleep at night, she said in a low voice. She spoke in a low voice, making people fall into her emotions unconsciously, making them feel very emotional and sad. For the elderly, eating and sleeping are two important things. If you don't eat well and sleep well, it will have a great impact on your body. So as a junior, I thought hard about whether I could do my best for my grandfather. Later, I tried adding ingredients to the spices to help people sleep. After a pause, her voice rose a little. As we all know, it is not uncommon for incense to help sleep. Some special flavor incense, such as lavender, can make people feel at ease. It's just that for patients with severe insomnia like my grandpa, it is not very helpful, so I tried to add some ingredients from traditional Chinese medicine that can help sleep and calm the mind. I also adjusted the weight and taste many times. Her words seemed to have a power, and she convinced people unconsciously. They felt that what she said was very reasonable, and they gradually understood that this was what happened. So, the poison you are talking about is actually medicine? Then why do you say it is poison? Someone raised his hand and raised an objection. Soo-yoon smiled easily and naturally. It's medicine that's 3 parts poison. Seems to be the case. Soon someone else said, do the perfumes sold by Huanya and other fragrances and essential oils that you blend also contain these poisons? Shaking her head, Soo-yoon said, the medicine added is for my grandfather's disease. Not all consumers need this special effect, so of course it won't be added. Besides, do you think that adding more traditional Chinese medicine ingredients will help? Is the cost lower than if we don't add anything? Then we increase the cost ourselves and become a charity. She said half-jokingly, and there was a roar of laughter from below, and the atmosphere became much more relaxed. Even the other Huanya staff started laughing. Unexpectedly, the situation suddenly turned around. Not only is the crisis gradually being resolved, it is even better than they imagined. You must know that the initial solution is to deny the authenticity of the recording or admit that you are talking nonsense, but both of these methods can only solve a temporary emergency. After all, in this era of advanced network information, it is very easy for a thoughtful person to use this audio to provide a deeper explanation, prove that the recording is what Soo-yoon said, and add fuel to the fire. Huanya should not be too forceful. Things have already caused a stir. At this time, direct use of capital to suppress it will only make people feel that what is said online is true. But Soo-yoon stood here and said a few words easily. She neither denied nor explained clearly. It was unreasonable for anyone to use the recording to make an issue. Anyway, they had already admitted it, including the additions in it. I've told you everything. But Miss Soo, I have done experiments before. After adding other ingredients to it, the performance is very unstable. Are you sure it is really feasible? Have you really succeeded? The person who raised the question was the one who initially raised the question. The perfumer who answered Si Yao's question. Obviously, he was still not convinced. After all, I have tried it myself many times without success. Seeing that Soo-yoon is so young, I simply don't believe that she has the strength. As she said, spices have ingredients that can help you sleep and soothe the mind. This is because of the inherent properties of the raw materials. How can it be so easy to add some other things? The fusion of fragrance and the matching of properties are all it needs to be taken into consideration. What's more, it's one thing to consider it, but it's another thing to actually implement it and succeed. He still remains skeptical. Here, there are 2 samples. She walked to the table and opened the box she brought. Inside were 2 brown glass bottles, which were kept well. These 2 bottles are for me to collect after returning to Zhongchang. I went back to the lab and made it with my assistant. One bottle has ingredients that calm the mind, and the other bottle has ingredients that refresh the mind. They are completely different. If you have any questions, you can give it a try, she said openly. And the perfumer didn't refuse, and actually walked forward directly. Standing there, he looked at Suyun with doubt in his eyes. Suyun smiled slightly, raised her hand and asked him to help himself. After thinking for a while, he pulled out 2 test strips from the side, then picked up the bottle and observed it carefully. He opened the mouth of the bottle, kept the bottle upright, took a deep breath away from the bottle, and frowned slightly. Looking up at Suyun again, seeing that she still looked calm, he put a drop on the test paper. We are all perfumers, so we have some knowledge about spices and essential oils. Just by looking at the color and smelling the smell, we can preliminarily identify the ingredients contained in it. Looking a little confused already, he picked up the test paper and brought it to his nose, and slowly. His brows furrowed deeper and deeper, and he maintained that posture without moving. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 360. Chapter 360. There are really people who are not afraid of death. How's it going? Seeing that he didn't move, someone couldn't help but ask. The perfumer looked up at Suyun in confusion, looked at her, and then lowered his head to smell the smell on the paper. He didn't answer. He dipped the towel on the side with water and wiped the end of his nose. Then he picked up another bottle without hesitation and repeated the same action. His reaction made everyone else very interested, and they stretched their necks curiously to see what was going on. Until he put down the test strip again and looked at Suyun with a surprised expression. How did you do that? Test, trial, and error, Suyun replied. Impossible. I have tried many times without success. You said you mixed these 2 bottles when you returned to Zhongcheng. This is even more impossible. He stared at the 2 bottles with an expression of disbelief. If I had rushed back to Zhongcheng to start the experiment, it would of course be impossible, but it's not the case. I have tried it many times before, and I know the ingredients and proportions in my mind. I only need to let the company do this when I come back. I prepare the ingredients and let my assistant help me according to my recipe, which is very fast. Suyun then looked at the others, but I'm sorry for wasting everyone's time. I originally calculated that the time was enough, but I didn't expect to encounter a traffic jam, so I came late. Speaking, she bowed deeply and expressed her apology again. At this moment, most of the media's views on her have greatly changed. Before, they thought this woman was not worthy of her boss and thought she had no guts and no brains. But now it seems that she stands there gracefully and in a noble manner. And adding Chinese medicinal ingredients to spices and perfumes without changing the fragrance is really not something ordinary people can do. The idea is very novel and the method is very awesome. Sir, you can go back to your seat. Seeing that the perfumer was still standing in front of her, Suyun reminded her. The man looked at her blankly and didn't move, as if he hadn't recovered yet. This gentleman. Yao frowned slightly and was about to signal the staff next to him to take the person away when he saw the perfumer suddenly take 2 steps forward and stared straight at Suyun. Are you accepting a disciple? Suyun was stunned for a moment, thinking she didn't hear clearly. What? Are you accepting a disciple? You can accept me as your apprentice, assistant or anything. Just let me follow you. I want to know how this is done, what I did wrong, and where I failed. He was very excited and even wanted to pounce forward. Soo-yoon was shocked and subconsciously took a step back. Just when the perfumer was about to move forward, the staff quickly stopped him and dragged him away to prevent his excessive behavior. "Miss Soo, I am serious, accept me as your apprentice, I want to learn from you." When the people were pulled out, they were still shouting. While the tense atmosphere was relieved, they were also a little embarrassed. Soo-yoon didn't expect such an unexpected situation. It was also unexpected, but she was relieved that everyone was taken away. At this point, no one doubted it anymore. It turned out that the so-called poisoning was exactly what it was. Not only did they gain more knowledge about spices and fragrances, they gained new insights, and they also learned it all over again. The knowledge and culture of my mother tongue makes me laugh. Thank you all for coming, that's it for tonight's press conference. The staff of Huanya came forward to finish the conversation, but before they could finish speaking, they were interrupted and the smiles on their faces suddenly froze. "With such useful medicine, isn't your grandpa dead?" One sentence, like a sharp sword piercing the air, directly brought the atmosphere to freezing point. Everyone looked towards the source of the sound and saw a relatively unfamiliar face. The man was sitting there, with his legs crossed, his posture casual, with a mocking smile on his face, his eyes looking straight at Soo-yoon who was standing in the front, the sharpness in his eyes making people sad don't dare to stare. "Who is he?" someone asked in a low voice. "Oh my God, how can he expose other people's scars?" Although the media often does things to expose people's scars, they only rely on people's orders. Not to mention giving Huanya face, President Sida is sitting here today. The death of Mr. Chu is so secretive that it is difficult to mention it, let alone what the man said just now. The best way to understand it is, what did you add? The medicine didn't work, and your grandpa still died. To understand it in a bad direction is, you have said so much, what benefits are there if you add any medicine, but will your grandfather's death have anything to do with the medicine you added? Everyone's expressions have undergone wonderful changes. Some people feel that this man is too abrupt and rude, others feel that what he says seems to make some sense, and some people are waiting for a good show. There are really people who are not afraid of death. Say such words in such a loud voice, do you think Yao is Hello Kitty? Are you just sitting there trying to scare you? He looked at the man, then at Yao and Soo-yoon who had already stood up on the stage. Soo-yoon narrowed her eyes slightly, is it him? After looking at each other for a few seconds, the man stood up calmly, raised his hands to dust off the non-existent dust on his body, and walked towards her without any cowardice or even a little arrogance. No one else has left, and I realize that there is a more exciting event to come. Soo-yoon, we meet again. Standing in front of her, he raised his chin, so arrogant that he could reach heaven. Mr. He, what advice do you have? Soo-yoon looked at him coldly. Seeing that he had no intention of shaking hands, Soo-yoon naturally would not take the initiative to extend her hand. He raised the corners of his lips and smiled. Hee-jin turned around, raised his eyelids and looked at the people who were leaving and waiting to watch the show. He smiled meaningfully and turned around again. Come on, the smile on his face quickly faded. Then he took out an ID from his pocket and waved it in front of her. Miss Soo-yoon, Hee-jin, on behalf of the Fragrance Industry Association, will officially launch an investigation into you. I have recorded what you just said, we will also verify the authenticity of what you said. Besides, he deliberately stopped and looked at Soo-yoon at leisure, but he didn't see any panic change on her face, which made him a little disappointed. I heard that you don't have a professional qualification certificate, so you are suspected of being a criminal. Illegal business, we will also hold you accountable. Hee-jin's words were like a bomb, and the media reporters were shocked. Soo-yoon doesn't have a professional qualification certificate. Have they never thought that a well-known perfumer, one who has even won international awards, does not even have the most basic certificate? And now that the Fragrance Industry Association has intervened, it seems that this matter is indeed true. End of this chapter.